Hey, what's up? This is the BEATBOX program. It's a drum loop program for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Uses two regular Nintendo controllers and the original Nintendo, and that's it. What controller 1 does, each button corresponds to a different drum sample. And there's two banks or drum kits to select from. Here's one. That's like the rock kit. Basically what controller 2 does is the whole program lets you record 4 drum loops and 2 drum fills. So the 4 drum loops, they get stored in these direction buttons. Each button corresponds to a different drum loop. The 2 drum fills get stored here in the A and B button, so each button corresponds to a different fill. And then start, we'll put it into record mode, and select, we'll put it into live mode, which is what it is right now. This is live mode, which means basically you just play a beat and that's it. Like you just play it live. So if you want to actually record a loop, this is what we do. You press start on controller 2 and then push up, and you see here on the screen it says record loop 1. We got 2 numbers here. Each loop and each drum fill can have up to 99 key presses. So each time I press the key, this will count down, and then once it hits 0, you've kind of exceeded the limit. The second one here is, what the deal is, in between each key press, it can't be more than about 4 seconds. So this number will count down from the number 25, and if it ever reaches down to 0, you've kind of exceeded that time limit as well. So those are your 2 counters, I guess, to keep track of. So when you're recording, you don't want it to go down to 0. And it won't start recording until you hit the first key press. So here we go. Right now, it's playing the loop back. So we've successfully stored that into loop 1. To stop it at any time, we just press select, we go back into live mode. And so that loop that I just played is now stored in the up button on controller 2. So every time we press up on controller 2, it's going to trigger that loop. You just keep triggering it. It'll just keep triggering it. So if we go to record another loop, we just press start again, and we'll record it to loop 2 this time. So that's loop 2, and back to loop 1. So really, if you get the idea, you get to record 4 drum loops that way. We just recorded 2. So each time I push the up button, it'll trigger loop 1. Each time I push the down button, it'll trigger loop 2. That's loop 2. Now loop 1. And then, so that's basically the idea behind the loops. Here's the drum fills. Drum fills work basically almost exactly like a drum loop, except they play only once, and when they're done playing, they'll go back to the previous drum loop. So here's an example. We'll just get, I'll record a loop. So that's basically, I've recorded the fill, it went back to loop 1. And then whenever I want to play the fill, goes back to loop 1 after it plays once. You can also change the loop. You can also change the loop after, if the fill is playing and you change the loop, it will go to that new loop after the fill is done playing. So if we, for example, what we'll do is we'll go loop 1, play the fill, and then go to loop 2 automatically once the fill is done. Okay, and so that's the idea behind that. You get 2 drum fills, the A and B button, and you get 4 drum loops, the direction button. Other than that, the only other 2 settings really is, as I mentioned earlier, you get 2 drum kits. This drum kit is labeled rock. If you want to switch between the drum kits, on controller 2 press select and B at the same time, that'll give you the Latin kit, and select A at the same time, we'll go back to rock. So if you want to hear the Latin kit, this is more percussive, has congas, things like that. That kind of more different type feel to it. Another thing that we can do is update the sample frequency. Sample frequency affects the speed and the tuning of the samples, so if we lower that, everything will play slower and sound much lower. To adjust the sample frequencies on controller 2, just press select and any of the direction buttons to update it. Here we go, that's 75%, 50, and 25, just so you can hear the difference. We go back to 100. And that's it. That's the BEATBOX program for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Hope you enjoy.